Okay, so we added all of the lights and switches and everything else. So it was time to add the script. So we have a VPW ROM example table we haven't released yet because we want to get it working properly first. But I basically copy and pasted the entire script from that, and you have to go and you have to make loads of adjustments. Scripting isn't my strong point. I'm okay, I can get by on it, but you basically paste it in and make some changes as you need to and hook different things up. Um, and that lets us get the machine to a point where it should be able to boot up and we can do things like check the lighting that we've done. So as you can see, the lights are going around um, and all the switches should be functioning. So that's good. Can take a while to get to that. Um, we might do a separate tutorial specifically on this, but that would be much more involved. And what we're going to look at now is we're going to look at solenoids. So solenoids are the higher power objects on the table, um, things that take more power than just lights and stuff. So they have their own separate systems. Um, Now, one of the things to do on the in the scripting is if you go and you look at all these down here and then you copy them, you want to see this sol callback. So that tells PinMain that you want to talk to it about solenoid 1. So you just copy them all down. So auto plunger, give them a name that you either use a name directly from here or a name that makes sense to you. And these control all of the toys. So in this case, auto plunge is obvious. It's the auto plunger. I've called these the scoop right and scoop top left, which are the kickouts from the vertical up kickers. So I've done a couple because I was messing around with it offline. But what we're going to do is we're going to make a VUC, a vertical up kicker, on here on the right hand side. So this one here is scoop right, and if you go up to, oh, there we go. See, 03 is this one, so that's here. Okay, so when you're dealing with VUCs, they can be table level, so like scoops, sorry, saucers, so they're actually on the table. But in this case, this is underneath the table. So we've done our playfield mesh earlier on. Let's just turn the playfield image off, and we've cut this hole out here. And what we'd also done is I created a layer called Subway, which we talked about earlier in Subways. And I've created this box underneath here to trap the ball. So if we go into the table, it will, we go to press live editor. You can see we've got our box there. Now in this case, this ramp has got a hole in it. This VUC kicks it vertically up and it ricochets off the top of the ramp and comes down this ramp. So we're going to design that and figure that one out. So to do this, our playfield mesh is visible. And these are all visible because we purposely made it visible. And we go to, in the manual, anytime there's any weird parts, as long as the manual's half decent and half modern, there should be a blueprint of the toy. There we go. So this is what the toy actually looks like. So this is the solenoid. This is a coil. When that solenoid fires, it punches this up in the air and that fires the ball out the top. The rest of it is just the shape. So what we can do is we've got these visible and only these two layers visible. So if we go File, Export, Object Mesh, and we'll call it, well, normally it defaults it to the file name, Subways. Save. We open up Blender because I find it a lot easier to design these in Blender. You can make them in VPX with VPX objects, but it doesn't give you as much control, and you normally end up having to have half hundredweight of walls and ramps and other things. It's hard to get right. So what do we call that? Subways. There we go. Make the view larger. So because of the way that VPX exports, one things we'll have to do is we have to go here and we have to find table 1 and delete it. Otherwise, right. So we can ignore the rest of this over here. These are the other ones. This is what we're concerned about. This is the bit we're concerned about. So if you really want to get rid of, not worry about anything, hide the playfield mesh, select those things and delete them. So we're just left with this. Okay, so this is the box we got underneath. Now we know that that box looks like that. So this is the back, this is the front. And again, we know this when we go through our reference photos. There's one here probably that will show us roughly what that looks like. There you go. That's not a good one. So anyway, you go through the photos and you can see what the things actually looks like in real life and how it's designed and which way up it is. And in this case, it kind of makes sense because you want it sloping towards the front of the machine. Otherwise, so this will be the low point, this will be the high point. Otherwise, you can't have a device that runs uphill. It just doesn't make sense. It wouldn't work. But it's always nice to double check these things because you'd be amazed at some of the weird and wonderful things. So there you go. You know that slopes down there because the actual coil and punch at the bottom is there. Right, so what we can do is object mode, edit, and we can be done here. First of all, select the whole thing, clean it up, merge all the vertices because it gives objects far too many vertices. There's probably someone out there screaming about how bad my Blender skills are, but that's what they are. We're gonna select. That's weird. Why has that done that? Oh, that's how it's designed as a box. Okay. Need to probably make that simplified, but this is because this is where it takes ages to sort these things out. So we can get the lines, subdivide the lines. Select the back two, move them, drag it up. And now we've got what is essentially, make sure that one, fillet, that one, and that one, fillet. Do that. Now we've got a box that slopes down that way. It would come down and work that way naturally anyway, but it's just one of the ways to do it. And you can mess around and tidy this all up because to be honest, we don't need the outside vertices. So you can delete them. And now you've got this orphaned bit down here. This is because of how we've made the box in VPX. Okay, that's connected to that. It's all a bit weird, but what you can do is you can merge them. So merge at last. Merge at last. Because we don't need to be massively exact. Actually, what do we do? Which makes most sense. Select them, click that one, merge them there. Merge there. These two don't need to exist. Oh no, actually we're going to merge those with those ones. Just because of the way it just makes life easier. We can leave this here. Ignore that because that's the actual base, and we need a base for the trigger to actually sit on, so it gets its reference height. We can get this and drag it up to the right level. So if we want to, we can delete that and just use it as a height reference. So the important thing here then, after you've done that, we'll hide the playfield mesh for a second, and we'll hide the floor and the switch. And we go up to face orientation. You want to make sure it's blue on the inside. That looks like it's doubled up. Mesh, clean up, delete loose, clean up, mesh by distance. Okay, because it's got a weird, that looks like there's two vertices at once, but it's going, for some reason, it's gone in the opposite direction. So, we don't want that, we don't want that. It's not letting us select. This is where my, delete that, delete face. There we go, delete face. Okay. 1, 2, 3. You too can learn Blender. Face, then triangulate it. File. And if you wanted to, then another thing you can do, if you've got a really complicated mesh, you can merge it with the playfield. I've done it occasionally when I've really struggled, because we don't have to worry too much about how the ball's coming out, because the ball's literally coming vertically out of here. We haven't got to worry too much, but if it was going to ride against the edge, then you could make the box actually match the edge, or even go to the playfield mesh, select it, object mode, select the vertices. Actually, we'll do this to make sure we're getting them all. Select the vertices, press E to extrude. Move, this is without pushing a button, it just does this, press escape, and then vertically drag them down, and you've now extruded out a box where if you now put your object back in, it's now inside that nice extruded shape. Okay. But we're not going to do that for the time being. So, happy enough with that. Again, check the face orientation. If the face orientation is wrong, the ball will just fall through it. Export object to call this upfuck. Then we're here. And we can do something like, you can select another one, copy, paste it, import the mesh, call it upvac, import it, and it will move it, translate it to the right place. So what we can do then is, this is the old wall we're no longer using, so you can make it invisible for the time being. Actually select that, click subway, and click assign, so make sure it goes to the right one, and make it non-collidable just for the time being, and make this non-collidable. You still want the trigger to be the same, and at the moment the trigger is on the VUC floor, which is this one, which is about -100. So it's non-visible, but that's still acting as the floor. Don't delete them yet because we're going to see how everything works. Okay, next, there's a part in the script which handles kickers. So I always do it by kickable because it's the only time you ever mention it. So this is switch 36. So when you're dealing with a VUC, they'll have a switch and a solenoid assigned. Your switch acts as your firing system. So we're here at the moment. So that's switch 36. So switch 36 is here. So you make sure there's a thing called kickable 36, which is the switch number. So what happens is switch 36 gets hit, so a ball falls into it. It sets the kicker ball up as the active ball, and it turns the switch on, which is what you want. And you can tell it here to make a sound. Then it just sits there and waiting. But what's happened is when you've hit that switch, it's told PinMain that that's what's happened. And PinMain comes back and says, okay, I've got a ball in there. I'm going to do some fancy animation on the DMD. And then I'm going to kick it out by enabling the scoop right solenoid. So if enabled, then control the switch equals 0, because as soon as it enables it, it fires it out. This done down here. Kick ball, kickable, so it tells you to kick the ball, kickable 36. Then these are the parameters. So you've basically got what ball you're kicking, this is kickable 36, what angle it's kicking out at, the velocity, i.e. how fast it's kicking out sideways, how fast it's kicking out vertically, so straight up, and how much to basically artificially lift it out. So in this case, we want it to have, it doesn't matter what the angle is, so set it at 0, do not confuse yourself. If you want to set it at an angle and you can't figure out what the angle is, if you click a kicker object, it's got a nice arrow there. So if you say for example, if you wanted to kick it along this axis that it's pointing, you'd set the orientation to, I don't know, what's that, 25? There you go, 25. So you would go, okay, I want to set that at an angle of 25. But we don't, we want it at 0. But that's just an easy way to do with the kicker because it's got a nice visual representation. We don't want it to have any sideways upwards, we don't have any sideways velocity, so that's 0. We do, however, want it to kick out vertically quite hard, and we're going to artificially raise it by 100 because we want to kick it up a long way. So that is all part of that. So that should be done. So now what we can do is we can save it. Go into the game. Obviously at this point you have to have the game running to be able to test these things. Okay, so going to start a game. And press that one, go to live editor, debug in the top left corner, open debugger, ball control, press start again, and then you can drop it into there. Now what hopefully you should see is the ball should fire up in the air. There you go. So it's having a spirited effort. At the moment, it doesn't quite know what to do with it because we haven't got a deflector here, but it actually looks like it's not kicking up um, high enough up. So what we're going to do is, one of the things we do is we go, okay, so what's actually happening here is the ball's probably resting down in this bottom corner. So what we can do is, I've done this elsewhere, and I'm going to steal it from somewhere because there's no point reinventing the wheel. Copy paste. So I've made one of these walls. Basically, this is just going to be a cradle. Assign it to the subway. I'm going to rotate this 25 degrees. And I'm going to do this. And so this is basically giving it a bit of a cradle so that it naturally falls into a position. When you've got a real machine, it sits in sort of a saucer type object. And this is just a way of doing something along those lines. So then we look at the ramp. Okay, it's coming up through the middle of the ramp. That looks good. See, before it was down here, so there's a chance it was also ricocheting off the side of the ramp. So we go into another game, put another 1,000,000 credits in. Whoosh. Just fight it over there just to see other things work, so you can see the other kicker working up here. There we go. Drag us in there, drop it in there. See what happens. Oh, we got to stop the spider, haven't we? Silly me. There you go. So you see that's now firing much better up in the air because it's not clipping on anything. So we'll put the deflector up on the ramp to get it going down the ramp, but that's basically how you handle these things. When you're dealing with a scoop kick out like the one you just saw, we've got this scoop deflector here, which basically just don't want to save that. Scared stiff. That's the ramp. That's the wrong one. Okay. But basically the scoop deflector just show you. The ball fires out and bounces off that deflector there. So you get it to fire vertically, the ball hits the top, rolls around and comes out down there. The reason you can't see it from this angle is because it's got normals only in one direction. And then it comes down here. So if you make these physically correct like this, the actual thing that controls the direction and where the ball's going and how it behaves is actually this scoop. You're not kicking it in a direction, you're telling it how to work exactly like the real machine does. The only thing I'd potentially do a little bit, and I'm going to tweak with here, is the wall cradle we made here will affect how a ball falls into this hole. So I'll tweak this and make it maybe a bit lower and sort of mess about with it later on. But it was just to give you the idea. And that's how you make a vertical up kicker. And we can go into some of the other solenoid toys later.